Welcome back to Expansive Astrology. My name is Melissa, the Self-Care Witch, and I am here for you with Capricorn, week 4. This week, hopefully you're feeling really empowered and in total boss mode with the support that Capricorn brings so far this season. And this week, we're bringing in some balance and making sure to tend to one of Capricorn's biggest challenges, which is not being so meticulous and demanding on ourselves. We're going to loosen up in the way that we're parenting ourselves. We're making sure that we're effective and kind and likable bosses to ourselves and not militant, abusive, authoritarian bosses as we're moving forward. So, and it's always divine, all of this just in time before we transition into Aquarius season, where we're asked to really step into ourselves and our authentic selves and shake things up and bring our own spin to what Capricorn has so diligently helped us to craft, right? Aquarius has so much to do with healing ourselves and bringing healing to the collective. So the timing is perfect. We begin to examine how we parent ourselves, how we hold ourselves accountable, how we show up in the work that we're called to be doing in the world as a way of beginning to heal old wounding, heal our relationship with productivity and rest, and healing the ways that we go about managing ourselves, managing our lives. So Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. And Joanna Woolfolk says, in certain ways, Saturn is a strict parent that lives inside of Capricorn. Essentially, you feel you can only depend on yourself. The child feels unworthy, and your lifelong lesson is to shed this feeling and learn to love yourself. You don't need to be your own parent who disciplines and keeps you towing the line. You yourself must allow the spontaneous part of you to play and run. I love that. And as I've spoken about so many times throughout Expansive Astrology, part of the work is in balancing two things: holding ourselves accountable and raising our standard for how we're showing up, and sometimes seemingly contrary to that, meeting ourselves where we are and loving ourselves even though we have work to do still. So how do we do this? First, let's get really clear on what exactly gets in the way. Why are we so strict with ourselves? Why are you so damn strict with yourself? Do you have a fear of showing weakness? Because knowing that vulnerability is often confused with weakness, and vulnerability is a strength. Just being aware. Are you afraid of showing any sort of weaknesses? Are your weaknesses just vulnerabilities? Are you just practicing, just learning? The grind. We get really strict with ourselves because of the grind. We have to always be grinding in this society. Hustle culture, right? And self-reliance is so idolized in our society, and we think that deprivation and then reward, we think that that's the most effective way to create change within ourselves. And we have this guilt and this shame that is so closely tied to toxic productivity and capitalism, and we're sold this idea of what's called a meritocracy, which is the political system in which economic goods and or political power are vested in individual people on the basis of talent, effort, and achievement, rather than factors such as heredity or wealth. And we're really sold on this idea, especially in America, of the American dream, having a meritocracy. It's a weird word to say. it would imply that the hardworking and talented and more intelligent people are the most successful, and we don't have that. We know that we don't have that, and still we want to prove ourselves to the world, right? Our culture doesn't work like this. And we know it doesn't work like this, and yet we still believe in things like the American dream. We believe that if we work hard and apply ourselves and hustle and grind, we'll achieve success. We're sold on this idea. And I think these are all reasons that we can be really strict with ourselves and really hard on ourselves and really perfectionist with ourselves. And think about it, consider it for yourself. Like, when and why are you quite strict with yourself? How and when and why does like whole hustle culture, grind culture, the American dream, capitalism, how does this show up for you in terms of how you show up to the world? Capricorn energy really begs the question, how do we prove ourselves to the world? And more importantly, how do we prove ourselves to ourselves in a healthy way? How do we honor our inherent worth aside from external circumstances, achievements, validation, milestones? How do we honor our worth aside from anything external? When it comes down to it, those are the questions we're exploring this week. The invitation is to shift into a sense of inherent value as you are right now, rather than placing your sense of worth on anything outside of you. And how do we get there? How do we get there? We reparent ourselves. All day, every day, we're reparenting ourselves. Reparenting ourselves is a brilliant place to start. So what does it mean to reparent ourselves? What does effective parenting look like? Right? It looks like nurturing ourselves, remembering that an inner child is still very much alive within ourselves, and tending to them with kindness and care, and managing our expectations of ourselves, and meeting ourselves where we are in the moment, allowing ourselves to play and to relax and to shut off and shut down, allowing ourselves to rely on others sometimes, allowing ourselves to ask for help or accept help. Capricorn can tend to be too self-reliant. Like, what are you trying to prove? Part of parenting ourselves is knowing that it takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child, and we're social creatures. Like, we cut ourselves off, right? That's part of parenting ourselves, giving ourselves space and patience and plenty of invitations to express ourselves. These are all ways that we can parent ourselves as adults. And think about it for yourself. Like, what does effective parenting look like for you? What sorts of things did you need as a child, whether you got it or not? How can you provide those things for yourself now? How can you best feel supported and encouraged to grow and expand and seek your dreams? What makes you feel most comfortable and safe and free? And how can you foster these feelings for yourself the way a parent would or should? You don't need to be your own harsh, critical parent to scale the mountain and get where you need to go. So, like, continuing with this parenting thing, let's also talk about, from that kid's perspective, let's talk about being naughty. Let's talk about being naughty. And this, by the way, comes directly from my 90-day Unshakable Confidence program. Just saying. Sometimes we just want to be bad. Sometimes we just want to be bad. It's rebellious inner child syndrome. It's a way of rebelling against outside authority. Sometimes we just want to be bad or naughty. There's a little kid inside of us who wants to push the boundaries, who wants to test the limits, or there's an adolescent inside of us who does not need to be told what to do because they know everything already. They don't need to be told, right? They don't want to be told. Most people don't like being told what to do. So we have our own mechanisms in place to rebel. And like, this is where that can sometimes look like self-sabotage, or the ways that we might actively work against our goals, because there's an inner child within. We have an inner adolescent version of ourselves still very much alive within. There's an inner parent within, right? So if we have this militant, especially if we have a very militant, strict inner parent, there's going to be a piece of us that expertly rebels against that doesn't want to be told what to do, that directly acts against our goals and what is best for us. Yeah. So some of these mechanisms of that inner rebel might be really outdated or really dysfunctional or self-destructive, right? So it's totally natural when we hear don't do that, or don't eat that, or you should be doing this. It's totally natural to want to rebel. Yet so many of us tend to think that being strict with ourselves is the best way to hold ourselves accountable. So as adults who are choosing to parent ourselves in a more effective way, we're learning to work with ourselves and work with where we are and work with that inner rebel. We are always all of our ages. So sometimes we need to cater to that inner 8-year-old, that inner adolescent. And that's why part of the focus for this week in expansive astrology is to laugh at ourselves and play and to be naughty. We're going to, I invite you to create a be naughty menu, if you will, to help you very intentionally loosen up. With all due respect, you need to loosen up. Just kidding. But how can you cater to your inner child's natural desire to rebel? How can you parent yourself effectively with this in mind? So some examples of being naughty might be not wearing underwear under a dress, or having sex safely in a public place where you won't get arrested or violate anyone else. But having sex in public is naughty. Having a super extra decadent dessert, or having a second dessert period, or having pizza 2 nights a week, or 2 nights in whatever, I don't know. Something that feels naughty, but being intentional and empowered about it. Prank calling your spouse or your mom. I've always wanted to do this and I haven't had the guts. I will one day. Introduce yourself to a stranger using a fake name and fake accent. I think it just sounds fun. Blasting music and jumping on the bed. When's the last time you did that? Anything to cater to your natural inner need to play and be bad and get away with it, Experiment with this. Just have some fun. Just don't get yourself arrested or fired or divorced or something like that, right? But I think there's there's so much value in this idea of letting yourself be naughty, and having fun with it. And as I say this, check yourself. How do you respond to something like that? How does it feel to consider doing something naughty like that? Are you a control freak? I'm not trying to judge. But Capricorn can be a bit of a control freak. And too much control blocks Too much control blocks innovation and opportunity and flow, right? So remember, part of the work of this week is to harness the strengths of Capricorn while also allowing ourselves to loosen up. So kind of assess how do you handle obstacles or changes of plan? How do you handle it when something doesn't go right or the way that you thought it should? How do you cope when you don't know what to expect out of a given situation or when someone doesn't show up the way that you expected? There are tons of things that might contribute to us having a deep need for control, right? Anxiety and fear, hypervigilance, trauma, so even here, we're asked to gently and effectively reparent ourselves. We're invited to really honor these pieces of us, the pieces of us that need to be right, that needs to know what is going on at any given moment, that needs to feel in control. We're honoring those needs and parenting ourselves through it, giving a pep talk, reminding ourselves that we can handle change. We can handle not knowing. We are resilient and we can go with the flow. And in fact, it's usually easier to go with the flow. Again, this is all about harnessing the strengths of Capricorn while also allowing ourselves to be gentle with ourselves, to loosen up, to allow ourselves to be imperfect, and to enjoy our time while being in boss mode and taking care of business and reaching goals and climbing mountains and being the goat and whatnot. Balance, 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 balance. Think of the goat scaling the mountain. They're experts at balance. I'm always in awe of the ways that the seasons build upon each other. Scorpio helped us to let go of what wasn't for us. Sagittarius helped us to tap in with our soul's callings and our wildest dreams of what could be true for our lives. And Capricorn has helped us learn how to scale those mountains and seek success effectively. It's divine. And I'll see you next week as we enter into Aquarius, where we'll be exploring authenticity and healing and how to show up in the full force of who we are and how that ultimately serves the collective, the whole shebang. I'm excited. Thank you so much for being here. As always, I appreciate it so much. Let me know what you think down below. How has your Capricorn season been? How do you hope to wrap it up? I'd love to hear from you. If you like what I'm doing here, please subscribe. I'd love to have you like the video, share the video if you'd be so inclined. It means the world to me. Until next time, take really good care of yourself. I'll see you later. Bye.